what it says about the heart and healthful living, those of you who did it. Can you name some things you learned about the human heart in that chapter, Healthful Living, chapter 27? All right, I'm going to pass it around. I think last time we examined the heart, but we didn't open it. So we can look at the different chambers of the heart. Okay? So I'm going to pass this around, open it up, examine it as we speak, please. So the human heart is about what size?
Size of a fist.
All right, it's about the size of a fist, right? And what is the main function of the heart? Or let me just rephrase that. What does the heart do? Okay, it pumps blood, so which makes it a pump. All right? Anybody ever use a sun pump? Yeah. Anybody here know what a sun pump is? Okay, so a sun pump, you know what it is, right, Anthony?
Yeah, it's like some people use it in their basement to pump water out of their basement.
You familiar with that?
A sump.
Sun pump.
Okay, I thought you said a sun pump.
Anybody, you know what it is, right? So, what is the purpose of that pump? For those who don't know, it's basically it's a pump that you put in your basement or where there's water, and it sucks up water and it shoots it out through holes. Okay, that's what it is. It's common with people who have pools. Also, if you have a pool, you can put it. If you cover your pool, you put it on the top, and you allow it to suck water out from the cover of the pool before you open your pool. But anyways, the heart is essentially a pump, right? And we learned last time that this pump is a special pump, right? And we also learned, some of us wasn't really acquainted with, if you would open it up and look inside, because that's exactly what the heart looks like. It has 4 chambers, right? 4 chambers. And what is a chamber, essentially? It's an apartment, right? So it has 4 chambers. On the outside of the heart, if you can see here, the external anatomy of the heart, we have this main vein here, or blood vessel. What is this called again?
Aorta.
You guys remember the name of this? It's called the aorta. Yes. And the aorta is one of the biggest veins that shoots off the heart. With the aorta, we have this vein, which is called the superior vena cava. Now, in anatomy and physiology, superior always means higher, inferior or always means lower, right? So we have the superior vena cava, and where do you think this artery goes to?
The lungs?
Well, that's an artery?
This vein, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a vein, you would have to make its way to the lungs or something.
Yes, but as it shoots up. Yes, it goes to the brain. So this is responsible for returning blood that has been robbed of oxygen back to the heart, and the heart then shoots it where, do you think? To the lungs, right. The brain shoots it to the lungs. I don't know why I got here. The brain shoots it to the lung, and what does the lung do with it?
It oxygen. Takes away the carbon dioxide.
Well,
And then gives it the oxygen.
it takes away the carbon, and also, what about the food that's in it? The nutrients.
Well, it goes to each of the organs.
Goes to the cells, right? Feeds the cells.
I
Yeah.
have a question though. By the time it gets back to the lungs, isn't it emptied of the nutrients? It already gave them all out?
By the time it gets back to the lung, it's, a lot of the stuff has already been emptied of it, especially oxygen, which is mostly oxygen. And it's been emptied of oxygen, and it goes right back and it goes back to the same cycle. Gets oxygen, and then returns right back here, and then shoots back up to this main artery, which is this artery we examined last time, which we're going to be doing some more of today, right? So once we get to the lung of the body, we're going to study that too. We're going to understand how this process actually takes place more in detail. But this is not the purpose of this today. With that, the circulation, and I want to talk a little bit more about the heart. With the circulation, we have in the human body different points that we call pulse. Anybody know about a pulse?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the body has various pulse points. All right. We have what's called a carotid pulse. This is a major pulse in the body. We have the brachial pulse, which this is going to be important in learning to take blood pressure. Everybody say brachial pulse.
Brachial pulse.
Right. So I want you to just pull your shirt up, and your brachial pulse is about right here. See if you can feel it. It's all right, because we're going to be learning blood pressure. Now, when you're going to be doing the blood pressure, the brachial pulse, you're going to put your stethoscope over the brachial pulse right around here, and you're going to be able to hear the heartbeat. So, something, and you can put your shirt back, we're going to be doing this practically. Something that most people don't understand is that the pulse represents your heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Mm-hmm. Because I'm not really feeling this, but I'm actually feeling the vibration of my heartbeat.
Right.
I'm not really feeling my pulse here.
How about the brachial pulse? This is the easiest one to find. Right?
Oh.
It's right here. It's right. So here's the thumb.
The brachial, the radial.
The radial. Sorry. Here's the thumb.
I'm feeling this one.
Here's the thumb.
Yeah.
Right. You see the thumb?
Yeah.
Follow the thumb down, and it's always right here.
Yeah.
You feel something beating right there?
Here.
You feel it? You can't use your thumb. Why?
You have one in the other thumb.
Yeah. So there's a pulse right here. And some of you, if you're not feeling it, what does that indicate?
Not good circulation.
Low circulation, not good circulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the heartbeat, everybody, it is shooting throughout the body different pulses. And we're going to learn, I wish this picture was bigger, that there's also a femoral pulse right here. Everyone has this. The popliteal is not really used that commonly. It's a hard one to find sometimes. But you have in your foot, all right, two pulses. You have the posterior tibial pulse and the dorsalis pedis pulse. Now, you are a medical missionary and you're taking care of someone and the person just drops. How do you tell whether or not this person dropped because they fainted or dropped because their heart stopped beating? That's right. You got to check their pulse. Now, anybody here has ever done CPR? I've had the privilege, I wouldn't say privilege, let me back that up. I've had the opportunity to perform CPR on numerous people. There was a guy, and when I first became a nurse, I walked in the bathroom, and I found him with a belt around his arm, and he was passed out on the floor. He was shooting up in the bathroom, and he had no pulse. So I got on top of him and began to do CPR, and by God's grace, he came back to life, and He cursed me after
Oh,
because I
Lord.
ruined his high.
He wanted to die.
Well, I don't know if he wanted to die, but. And then I had numerous people that we did CPR on. There was one lady who I surely thought she was dead, but she did not. And there are some who don't make it. But CPR is a very gruesome process. You can break every bone in your body and your chest cavity. However, why do we do CPR?
To put air in the lungs.
Okay?
So the
It's
lungs.
like breathing for the person.
Yeah.
To do what? Right. Well, basically,
You're pumping the
let's just go here and understand this from a biblical standpoint. Since we are on the heart, let's go to very common verse, Leviticus 17. Leviticus chapter 17. Can we read verse 11 and verse 14? Leviticus 17, verse 11 and verse 14.
The life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your soul. For it is the blood that makes an atonement for the soul.
Verse 14.
For it is the life of all flesh. The blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, ye shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off.
Okay. So here we see the Bible actually telling us that the blood is the life of all flesh. So the reason why we do CPR is to keep the blood flowing. That's number one. Number two, by the grace of God, you can jumpstart the heart. Okay? Because when we get into learning about the tissues and the cells, you're going to find that each cell has functions going on within it, right? And you're going to see that a cell is the basic building block of the human body. Meaning, if you're going to build a house, we learned last time you needed brick, you needed wood, you needed a foundation. The human cell, all right, is the basic building block. So the brain is made up of cells. The eyes is made up of cells. The heart is made up of cells. Every organ in the body is essentially a bunch of cells coming together to form an organ. And that cell needs the circulation of the blood. Okay? Which is why if I drop dead because my heart stopped beating, you want to keep the blood flowing to every organ in the body, especially the brain, because the brain can only live but so long without circulation. All right, are we following? Yeah. So now, the reason why we're doing the CPR is to keep the life of the flesh, which is what? The blood flowing to the cells. All right? These things, I mean, we've heard it, but we're not putting them together. And this is what we're going to be able to do here. And so, think about this now. Let's just build on what I said. When you look at the pulses of the human body, right? What does that have to do with the circulation?
whether it's sluggish or whether it's good, the pulse.
Very good. I like that answer. Anybody else?
What was the question?
When you look at the pulses of the body, what does that tell you, or what does that have to do with the human circulation?
There are numbers too that tell you, whether the rate is good or
Ah, very good. I like that. We got some students here who are not new to this.
Yeah, let's say is it possible for the pulse to be well off here, but the pulse to not be really?
Ah, we're gonna get there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because remember our assignment last time, right? When we examined the circulation, which we're going to be doing again today. I don't want to rush this, this part of anatomy and physiology because it is so important. In school, this is not stressed upon. All you're told is you have a heart that beats and you need to learn the name of the arteries. But what we come to understand through the spirit of prophecy is that the circulation is so important to our health. So we need to dwell upon this and spend some time. So, Anthony, what did you say?
Is it possible for the pulse to be good, let's say in the wrist and the radial?
Right.
But not be good in the posterior?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Very much.
Right. And what would be a sign that you would see if someone had, let's say, poor circulation?
Are we close?
A weak pulse. A very thready, weak pulse. Cold feet. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen someone who has swelling in the lower extremities, which we call edema? Right? That is a sign of poor circulation. So, the pulses of the human body, we start with the carotid pulse, which is right here, right? Now, this pulse is a really heavy pulse to hear. If you have a stethoscope or you can feel it sometimes. Most doctors you'll see when they pronounce somebody, they'll check for the carotid pulse. You also have an apical pulse, which I don't see here. An apical pulse is the direct pulse of the heart. This is when you go to the doctor, and the first thing they do is they take the stethoscope and they put it right here, which, by the way, we're going to be doing today to check our pulses. All right? Males can partner with their wives, and the females can do each other here. So we're going to listen to the apical pulse. We're going to try to find the brachial pulse, and Sister Vicky can help with that. And we're going to also try to find the radial pulse. The dorsalis tibial pulse and the posterior tibial pulse, you guys can do that at home and trying to find it. But right now we are interested in finding the brachial pulse and the radial pulse because we're going to utilize that in order to take blood pressure. All right? Yes. No, it's actually right on top. It's like right here on top of the dorsal aspect of your feet. We call it dorsal. So that's where it is. All right. When you go home, you can try to find it. If you can't hear it, you can use a stethoscope. Sometimes we do a Doppler to check it too in the medical world. So those are the pulses of the human body. Any question about that? So which pulse you're going to use for blood pressure?
Brachial.
The brachial and the radial. Brachial, radial. Brachial, radial. Those are the two pulses you're going to use. What's that? Yeah. Well, the ulnar pulse is right. It's that one. It's not commonly used. All right. So right here is the radial pulse. Now, do you see what? This is underneath. If you had X-ray vision, you would see all your arteries and blood vessels. Actually, they make a machine that can actually help you see the various veins. I wish we could afford it. It's beautiful, but it's expensive. People use it.
What's expensive?
Thousands, probably. They use it for IVs when people can't find a vein. They just shine it on you and you see it.
So
Just
small.
like that.
It's small then.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a light. It's a special light that they sell. I don't know if it's, I gotta look. I'm not sure.
Like
how
my
much
little
it is.
magnifier that I use?
Yeah, but it's a special light that actually allows you to see right through the skin.
No, I
You
was
can
talking
see
about
it.
the size of it. I wasn't thinking that.
I don't think it's that big.
No?
It's not that big. So we're going to be using that for blood pressure today.
I have a stupid question. What
Yes.
is CPR?
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So cardio refers to
Heart.
the heart. Pulmonary refers to
Lungs.
the lung. Resuscitation refers to
Right.
reviving. Right. So we want to revive ourselves, right? Now, if the life of the flesh is in the blood, we looked at this last time, but we kind of breezed right through it because it was very late in the course where we learned about this. I wanted to dwell more on this figure. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
So, the blood is about 8% of your total body weight. That's a lot. That's huge. The other fluids you have in your body, which we're going to learn what they are, you have interstitial fluid, you have the fluid that deals with the can't think of it now. The lymph node, thank you, lymphatic fluid. You have all kinds of other fluids. But for this purpose, we're going to utilize the blood to look at what it's made out of on a greater detail and a greater level. Because last time we didn't do this justice. All right? So we talked about an individual going to the doctor. And the first thing that the doctor does after he examines you is what? Prescription. The doctor orders lab work. All right? And you can see how some people, you can actually see those veins. You see that? She's got very nice veins. By the way, I have become somewhat of an expert at taking blood. When you understand the body, you don't need to find veins, you don't need to look with your eyes. You can feel it. It's a very bouncy. So find a vein in your body. It's like a very bouncy feeling. It's like you're bouncing on it, right? You don't need the eyes to do it. Because if you go by the eye, you're going to miss it. Right? So as you're trained, you're going to know how to find a vein. So the doctor orders lab work. So typically what lab work he orders?
CBC.
CBC, which stands for what?
It's blood. Yeah.
Complete
Count, yes,
blood
count.
count.
Yes. And then.
CMP is the comprehensive metabolic panel. So anytime you hear metabolic, you're dealing with what? Enzymes, proteins, calcium, magnesium, anything in your body that gives nutrition to your cells. We're talking about metabolic, metabolism. It comes from the word metabolism, okay? Also, the doctor might order a BMP, which is a basic metabolic. It has less components than the CMP. CMP is comprehensive, it's huge. Or the doctor might order an A1C if you're diabetic. Which basically measures the stickiness of your blood from a period of 3 months. It shows how well you're managing your blood sugar if you're diabetic. Many other TSH deals with thyroid, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Now, for the sake of this, the doctor orders a CMP and a BMP, and you go to the lab, and the lab sticks you, and they get your blood. What are they looking for the most part?
What's going on?
Your levels of each.
Right. So once the blood is collected into the tube is spun in a centrifuge, and the centrifuge, everybody knows what that is, right? Separates the blood into various parts. At the very bottom, which is the very heaviest part of it, which once we get our microscope, I'm ordering the microscope, we're going to be examining the blood under a microscope. we have the formed elements. Just pay attention to this part, all right? Don't look at anything else right now. Just follow the color to understand this. So red, we're going to follow red, all right? We're going to follow this color, and then we're going to follow the yellow. So what is found inside of the red blood cells?
So that's white blood cells and red blood cells.
Okay. And by the way, there's another book I'm going to recommend. You don't have to, this is not required for the course. This is first book in physiology and hygiene by Dr. Kellogg. This is about $15. This book is excellent to teach those who are very new to anatomy and physiology, and also for children. All right, I just wanted to point that out before I continue. So, in the formed elements here, you have the platelets. This is just the red part. What does the platelets do?
Clot the blood.
They heal, they clot.
When you have a cut, those little platelets run to the source of the cut to patch things up. Are you familiar with tires that are patched up, the inside of the tube? You remember that? Nowadays tires don't have tubes anymore. But where I'm from in Haiti, we used to patch tires. And it was a lot of work to do. So those platelets rush to the site of the cut to begin the healing process. God is amazing, right? And the count for the platelets should be about 140,000 to 340,000. If it's below that, you have a problem. What's the problem? You can bleed out, right? And also, it'll be harder for you to heal. All right? We also have within this formed element the leukocytes. All right? Anybody remember what the leukocytes are for?
Fighter cells.
Huh? Right. They are the white blood cells, which are responsible for your immunity. So, by the way, in your CBC, anybody go get your lab work, you're going to see the WBCs, or the white blood cells, within them. And that indicates whether or not your body has an infection or trying to fight an infection. So normally the normal count for that is about 5,000 to 10,000. If it's above 10,000, they might say, oh, this shows that there's an infection growing in your body. Now, vegetarians and vegans might be lower than normal, right? Sister Vandel, if you had an experience with that, you might be a lot lower. And why is that?
Because you don't have as much waste toxic material
In your body.
blood for it to fight.
It indicates
so you don't need as much leukocytes.
Yes. Yes. It indicates the cleanliness of your blood. Do you know Sister Vandel had, I hope you don't mind me telling you, she had an experience with that because she went to the doctor and they took her blood and they said, your white blood cells are low, which would indicate what?
Cancer.
Typically, it can indicate cancer. You know that, right? What else can it indicate if your white blood cells are low?
Well, you don't have.
You have a weak immune system. But there's a difference in people who eat clean foods. It can be low simply because your blood is clean. You don't need as much white blood cells to fight versus someone who's eating a diet that is full of meat and cheese. This is a fact, and I believe Sister Vandel said Dr. Trash, who was the doctor over at UG Pines, came in and kind of was helping her out with that because the doctors were trying to figure out what's going on, why is your blood count so low? Which, by the way, in cases of leukemia, Leukemia, you'll see low blood counts.
Okay.
And the reason why what happens in leukemia is the blood cells do not mature enough before they begin to die. Do you know that the red blood cells, again, it goes back to the cell, right? Everything goes back to the cell. The red blood cells have a period of life of about 120 days. And then they retire to the spleen and other places of the body. But that's too, I don't want to get into too much medical jargon.
What exactly is the function of those leukocytes?
Okay. The leukocytes is a general name for every cell that takes care of the immune system. All right? Yes. Yes. The leukocytes function to, let me just put it that way so you can remember. They are the body's army. They are always looking out for invaders to fight them. So leukocytes equals the army of the body. You know how the Bible says, put on your whole armor? They are part of the armor. But they don't fight on the inside, they fight on the outside, but they fight on the inside. And they fight a battle that you never see.
Amen.
But you might feel if it's weakened.
Oh, yeah.
Now, with that being said, the leukocytes falls under 5 different cells. Now, the basophils, the eosinophils, the monocytes, the lymphocytes, the neutrophils. Now, this I don't want to get into too much medical jargon.
Well, is the neutrophil the white blood cell?
Yes. So the leukocytes is an umbrella term for all of your white blood cells. Get that? Yeah, it's an umbrella term for all of your white blood cells. And then it's classified further into 5 different types of white blood cells, all of which are responsible for something different.
Amen.
Now, to give you an example, because I don't want to get too deep into this, the basophils, I believe, I'm not remembering now, it's been a while, one of those cells basically eat foreign objects. Some of them will see it, will shoot something and kill it, but the neutrophils, yes. The neutrophils eat different things they see. An invader, they eat it up. And yes. Some will shoot different things at them and literally waste it away. Now, it's amazing that God is in. You guys remember I tell you that everybody has at least 5 to 10 bouts of cancer each year? But yet don't even know it? Why do you think?
Because of your army.
Yeah. You know, cancer, and doctors won't tell you this, essentially, cancer is caused by the blood that is not clean, and bad blood, and it is a way for the body to dump garbage. That's what cancer is. When the various means that God has created to clean the body and clean the blood is not functioning, such as, what are some of the means that we use as garbage cans in the body? The kidneys, the liver, the GI tract, the skin. How about the lungs? You see, the sweat glands. When these things are backed up, the body naturally finds a hole to dump the garbage, and that's what cancer is. It's not something to be afraid of when you hear the C word.
Amen.
But as Ministry of Healing tells us, we have to ascertain the cause. We have to change the wrong habits, and we have to restore in the system the right principles. Yeah. It's an effort, yes. Right. That's right. That's right. And it's actually God's mercy. So, but here's the thing. What does cancer love? Sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And cancer also loves blood. Because the more blood it gets, the more it grows.
Oh,
and
yeah.
grows and grows. And so the key is you want to actually starve that cancer with certain kind of foods, but we'll get into that some other time. So everybody understands the leukocytes. Leukocytes is an umbrella term for the 5 different components of the white blood cells, period.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So leukocytes are responsible for your immunity. The immunity. Right? We also have that little small area. Do you see this?
Buffy coat.
The buffy coat that goes in between the form elements and the plasma, which we're going to get into the plasma more. We have within the buffy coat other solutes, about 1%. It's tiny. But here we have ions. What are ions responsible for the body?
Energy. Charge.
They carry electricity. You know your charge right now? You know you have electricity going through your body? Nutrients, some waste, and some gases are found within there, and regulatory substances. We have here also the plasma. Now the plasma is important. The plasma, believe it or not, is the fluid that is circulating throughout the body in which all of these things are suspended inside. You understand that? So, in other words, water is the carrier that carries these things to your body. Mm-hmm. And it's the plasma that does it. You know, the red blood cells, which are about this small of a shape, you're going to see them under a microscope, and we have our microscope practical. They are within the plasma, and they're being pushed to every part of the body in order to carry what? Oxygen. The red blood cells carry oxygen to the body. Don't ever forget that. The white blood cells, or the leukocytes, give the body protection. The plasma carries nutrients, proteins, and water throughout your body. So let's look at, so basically when you eat, where does the food go? Goes into the stomach. It goes into this, it's broken down. Remember the 5 food laboratories we studied in church? Eat the food, goes in the mouth. Where does it go next? Down to the esophagus, to the stomach. Where does it go from there? To the small intestine. Where does it go from there? Through the liver. The liver does some of the cleansing part as well. And then it goes to the large intestine, and then we get rid of it and waste parts that we don't use and need. Yeah.
So it goes to the stomach, and then in the small intestine. Then you said it goes to the liver?
Yeah, it goes to the liver throughout, before and after. It does both parts because the liver is a cleanser.
Okay.
The liver just cleanses it. So the liver has a job that is, even though it's outside of the GI system, but it's also involved. So it's not like, it's not directly, it's connected to the GI system, but it's outside of it. It's not like a continuous tube. The liver just the job of processing and cleansing and cleaning in the body, along with many other functions. It has over 500 functions. The colon is, go back to this. So we have here the GI system. Anybody know what, when I say GI, what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Gastrointestinal, right? It was called in the old days the alimentary canal. Mm-hmm. It's not used anymore. But The esophagus, you see here, you got the esophagus. You see, the liver is connected here. A lot of the blood goes back into the liver and returns to the blood after it's been cleansed and processed. But this is the colon, to answer your question.
And that's another word as the large intestine.
Yes. I'm sorry, the colon is here. It initiates here. We call it the large intestine for short. But once the food has been processed through the small intestine, which is about 30 feet long, which is why when you eat meat, it sits there and rots for weeks and months sometimes. And we also learned that constipation is not necessarily that you're not going to the bathroom, but it's the fact that you're not totally emptying yourself. Most people are dying of constipation in this country. You don't even know. So, because the waste, again, it's not the constipation that kills you, but it's the waste that is sitting there and being reabsorbed into the blood, especially from the meats and foods that people eat.
We asked someone, what are your bowel habits? They said, oh yeah, I go every day. I go twice a day, but like you say, if you're not emptying properly,
Right.
that's why colon cleansing is good.
It's very good. And this is why you should drink that warm water early in the morning.
And lemon too.
What do I call it?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by emptying out properly? If you go twice or 3 times a day, what do you do?
Well, if you're not eating enough fiber and you're not drinking enough water, you might have a bowel movement, but there's still things stuck in the colon.
That's why.
We can all feel it also, sometimes when you just don't really evacuate.
Yeah. You can feel it. You know when you. How many people have gone to the bathroom and then maybe 2 or 3 minutes later you feel like you want to go again? That's never happened?
But not only that.
One thing I learned also is that basically properly evacuating when you eat breakfast and then when you eat lunch, that's a good time. You should then be evacuating breakfast.
Exactly.
When we dinner, you should be evacuating your lunch.
Yes. Thank you. Dr. Kellogg's right about that in one of his books, The Itinerary of a Breakfast. I'll print that for you if I can find it. And he writes about exactly what you said. By the time you eat a certain meal, you should already be ready to evacuate the other. If that's not happening, then you're not evacuating properly. But anyways, that's another subject. But the colon is here, right? The colon, you can also listen to the sound of your bowels. You ever go to a doctor, and the doctor says, I'm going to listen to your bowel, and he puts the stethoscope here, 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 here. That's what he's doing. He's listening to your bowel sounds. All right? To make sure that you actually you have good digestion going. So the colon is here, and it starts here, and it goes through here, it terminates here. Most people that are constipated, it happens around here and around here, which is what we would use an enema for, which as a medical missionary, we use a lot of enemas. But anyways, we're going way off topic. All right, so you have the plasma, which carries to the body proteins, which we have the different types of proteins. Water, look at how much water it is. 92%. Which is why, right, in order to have perfect circulation, what do you need to do?
Drink water.
Drink lots of water. Can you imagine the plasma is 92% water? In my experience as a nurse, I've often gone to take blood and I can't get the blood. I am in the artery, but the blood's not coming out. And if it does, it comes out really dark and really thick. I've had people, the moment the blood come out, it clots.
Wow.
They're dehydrated.
Wow.
People, usually what I'll do before I take blood, I'll say, drink a cup of water. Room temperature. And wait about 10 minutes and the blood will come out. So, yeah.
Sorry, just a very quick testimony.
Yeah.
My neighbor that I had, he got a stroke. And when they checked him at the hospital, they found that he was dehydrated. And he
It mentions that in our chapter this week, right?
Ah, it does. Chapter 27, Healthful Living.
It
It mentions that. If you read Healthful Living, chapter 27, it's all about the heart and the blood. I had an experience, I'm just going to tell about this. I was coming back from a missionary trip in 2015 from the Philippines. And I was flying from from China to New York City. And the flight was about 15 to 16 hours. It's a total of like 20 to 24-hour flight, but I was on my second flight. And probably about halfway through the flight, I heard a page over the loudspeaker in the plane. Are there any medical personnel on board? Any medical personnel on board? So I waited, and I said, surely there's some doctors around or whatever. And after a while, I didn't see anybody getting up except for one or two people, so I went in the back. I prayed, I said, Lord, give me wisdom. When I got there, there was an Asian man who was sitting on the back of the plane, the very back where the attendants usually sit. And he was about as white as this paper. And he was clammy, he was cool, he was sweaty. And he was not responding very well. So when I got there, I believe there was a doctor and some other person that was there, but they didn't know what to do. I'm not kidding you. They didn't know what to do. So I said, as I see them laying around, I said to the flight attendant, I said, we need to check his blood sugar, and we need to figure out what's going on, because that was the first thing that popped up in my mind. I said, maybe he's a diabetic. And she said, do you have your nursing thing on with you? I said, actually, I don't have one with me. I said, I'm a nurse. She's like, well, you can't stick them. I said, okay, that's fine. So I told the doctor, lay him on the floor, because he's just looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, lay him on the floor. It was only the grace of God. I said, the other nurse, I said, you elevate his legs. So they laid him on the floor directly. The nurse elevates his leg. What does that do?
Blood to the brain.
Get the blood to flow to his brain. So after about 5 minutes, he's barely coming back to consciousness. And I told the flight attendant, give me a big cup of water. Give me a big cup of water. I gave the man a cup of water. Within 2 minutes, he was back up. His color came back. The man told me he had been in that flight for almost, I don't know how many hours, and had not drank any water. He was dehydrated. So I said, you need to make sure you drink some water for the duration of the flight. And then I left and went back to my seat. And they said, and the flight attendant came and said, what do you want? Chocolate candy? I said, no, I don't want any of that. Thank you. But it just goes to show you that sometimes we try to overcomplicate things, but it's really simple. All that man needed was some water. He had not drank. And as a result, his blood dropped. And whenever somebody passes out and they have a pulse, lift their legs up, because what that does is it gets the blood to flow to the vital organs, which is the heart and the brain. All right? So, that's a quick testimony. We're almost done. What time is it? All right, 11:39. Wow, this time goes fast. All right, this is from the book that is recommended for this course. Some of you got 9th edition, but it's supposed to be 8th edition. It's about $5 or $6 on eBay.
Really?
Or 8 or 9.
8 or 9. That's cheap. When I first got this book for school, it cost me hundreds of dollars.
Wow.
And you know how they do books in school. They just make a new color and change a few things.
And another price.
And add the price. So, in this book, this is where I'm quoting this from. It says here, the blood is the river of life that surges within us. And this is the world telling you this, right? This is not from the writings of Ellen White. If you don't believe the testimony of Jesus. The blood is the river of life that surges within us, transporting nearly what? Everything that must be carried from one place to another. Today, centuries later, blood still has an enormous importance in the practice of medicine. Clinicians examine it more often than any other tissue when trying to determine the cause of disease in their patients. What's wrong with this picture? Okay.
It said almost, there was one, what's the word that said?
It's nearly everything, hospitals in nearly everything.
Well, actually, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
What I want to bring out is I misspoke. Do you see clinicians examine it more often than any other tissue? The blood is a tissue.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
It's a tissue. Why? What is it made out of? Cells.
Blood cells.
So it's actually called blood connective tissue. It's made out of cells. And anything that's made out of cells is a tissue. All right? You might say, well, how is it a tissue when it's liquidy? It's a tissue. So we actually have from the world what we've been told in the spirit prophecy. And by the way, the Bible spoke of this long before scientists knew. Do you know that there was a time where they used to drain people's blood to figure out how to cure them?
Yes. Yes.
You know that?
Yes.
And then the person would die and say, what happened? And then they realized, oh, the life of the flesh is in the blood. If I drain the blood, there's no life.
Amen.
But God had already said it long before human found it out. Moving on, this is now from Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, page 531. The limbs were not formed by our Creator to endure exposure, as was the
Face.
face.
Yep.
We're gonna see why this is important. Why is that?
God is amazing.
Tell me why. You didn't study helpful living. See? You didn't do your homework.
Why
You
the
did your homework.
why
but
the
no.
why the face? Why the face?
Why did God make
Because-
the face to be exposed to cold, but yet the other part of the body, such as the feet and the toes and the foot and the feet,
Because
are not to be exposed?
Because he put a different system in the face, so that for the
Can you guys go back and study helpful living?
Yes, I
Chapter
remember.
27 and
Yeah.
do your homework.
I remember him saying that
I know you guys did.
Yes.
But you're right.
he put a different mechanism. I can't remember what it was.
I'm not talking to everybody. I know some of you did your homework.
Yes.
But let's go on and read it. All right, because the clue's actually on the board. As was the face, period, the Lord provided the face with an immense circulation because it must be exposed.
Yep.
It must be.
Yep.
It must be exposed.
Mhm.
You can't cover your nose because you can't breathe.
Amen.
Right? The Lord provided the face with an immense circulation because it must be exposed. Now, think about this for a moment. What does that do with people in Muslim countries? Women.
Huh?
Do they expose their faces?
No.
No, but they leave this so they
This-
don't. can breathe.
So
Some
they're,
of them.
they're stifling themselves.
Some of them.
So the circulation should be good there.
Yeah. So it says, He provided also large veins and nerves for the limbs and feet to contain a large amount of current of human life. What's the current of human life, everybody?
The blood.
Blood. That the limbs might be uniformly as warm as the body. Now we find that also in Helpful Living, chapter 27. Look at the circulation of the face.
Wow. Amazing.
As compared to the circulation of the limbs.
Wow. That's amazing.
You see that?
Is this picture in the book?
No, this is a picture I got online. But there is picture in the book about the circulation of the face. Under the chapter entitled, there's a chapter in here about the circulation. I didn't want to give you homework on this because it's a lot. This is for your own keeping and for your own studies, because this class is only preparing you, giving you the foundation for you to continue your studies. You know, every medical missionary has to continue their studies.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, look at the circulation of the face. Right? It is loaded with veins and with arteries. Loaded. Now, how does this woman know this?
The Holy Spirit revealed
With
it.
a third grade education. Who told her?
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah. When you can actually prove what she's saying with a picture.
Mm.
And a lot of people never thought about this. But we have today people, even in our church, who goes out, limbs exposed,
Yes.
toe, feet exposed. This is important because what we're learning is we have to stop doing that because perfect health equals perfect circulation. And we're going to find out what happens when we expose these limbs. Here's another picture.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Fashion dictates
Fashion.
that women expose their feet, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
Sandals, cute little sandals.
Right. Which, by the way, not even in the summer is supposed to be exposed.
That's right.
You know that? And I've been guilty of that. I put on a t-shirt because it's hot. But what we don't know is when you cover yourself, you stay cooler.
That's right.
You know that, right? It's in the spirit.
That's right.
You stay cooler with your limbs covered. Then when you say it's hot, I gotta expose my limbs.
No, I just wanted to add something. So, I heard myself, so in the summertime, we should still wear long sleeves.
Yes.
The right material.
And it's interesting, if I can say this, just from practice and experience, because I didn't believe it at first.
I didn't either.
When I started to practice it, it's a fact. And you're cooler, the body is always perspiring.
Right.
And so if you take off that, you actually start to feel chill. Your arms actually start feeling chillier. Unless you're in the dead hot sun.
Yes.
Now if you're doing a sun bath, it's different. But just normal walking about, you put one layer
Right.
all over in the summertime,
Right.
you're fine. And it is a blessing.
Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, and then just now the Lord just downloaded something down my memory. Have you ever seen how the Arabians dress in the desert?
That's right.
How do they dress?
They're
Yeah,
covered
Why?
to protect themselves.
So when there's heat, they cover, and they stay cool that way. You can Google the picture; it's a fact.
Also, not only staying cool, but thinking about there's so much skin cancer. I was working with surgery, we were doing surgery. And there's a lot of skin cancer. And I would tell them to find, maybe not use cotton, but maybe like linen clothing to cover and stop if they're gonna be in the sun, stop. Yeah, the exposure.
Right. The exposure, right? So it's a fact because we have evidence of people doing it in extreme heat. So,
You said,
Brother,
sorry, they should have somebody we should wear clothes, shoes, open toe shoes, closed shoes.
the feet, everything should be covered. We have here an example of someone with poor circulation. This is what to answer Anthony's question. How do you think this individual got to that point?
Bad diet, no exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Water, like the water.
Yeah,
all of them,
but what did we just talk about?
covering, lighting.
Probably not covering their limbs,
Mm-hmm.
exposing their limbs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially and dealing with in this area, and this is I don't know if it's a fashion statement, but I see a lot of people of European descent. You ever see them going to the gas station in the middle of a cold, like it was yesterday, with a t-shirt and shorts
Some people wear shorts.
all the time, right? And usually, I've seen not just European, but it's more so common with them, from what I observed, but also people of all descent. But it's just a matter of not understanding when you see those people and you're able to develop a relationship, just try to educate them
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
you need to cover your limbs, you know. So this individual has poor circulation as a result of, could be a lot of other things, but we can see, how can you see there's poor circulation? Right, there's discoloration. So that's one of the signs of poor circulation. There's discoloration in the skin. You might not feel a pulse down there. This person, obviously, their vein system is not working properly. You know, your vein act to shoot blood back up towards the heart. And the vein has, a valve type of system. It doesn't work as well as shooting down because guess what? It's got to work against gravity already. So it's trying to force the blood up. And especially when, right, that's what, exercise is going to help to get that blood flowing quickly. Absolutely. Because the toenail is actually, remember the experiment I actually do? Go home, take a piece of hair, burn it, smell it. Go home, take a piece of nail, burn it, smell it. Same smell. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sunburn is a sign that you've had too much of the sun and the intense heat. And what does society do? They want to sell you potions and medicines and make money rather than tell you to
Cover up. Right. But we need the sun. You know, there's a sun that we need, that early morning sun. We need the sun for vitamin D synthesis. So, see another sign of that. That's for. By the way, can you restore this person's circulation?
Yes.
Right. But what would let's say this is a diabetic and the foot becomes what we call necrotic tissue, which is dead tissue. They would say, well, let's cut it off. How would you be able to restore the circulation? What is one thing you can do?
Rehydrate first.
Be careful about.
I'm not hearing what I'm. Hydrate. Yeah. Hydrotherapy.
You gotta be very careful because you can't feel anything, so you don't know if you're burning it.
Right.
You have to test it yourself and make sure you're
That's right. Right. I heard of somebody who was who got 2 buckets from Walmart, one with warm water, one with cold, dump it in one, remove it, dump it in the other, do that back and forth, restore the circulation. It works. So again, this is a sign of someone. What is actually happening here? What are we noticing here? Go back to what we said. Could be an infection.
I say it's just a lot of pooling of the blood information. The blood is not coming up. There's no proper circulation there, so the blood is pooling there.
Right?
What's the white stuff?
It's just crust and dry.
The white stuff, and this is what I was looking for, symbolizes dead cells.
Mm-hmm.
Cells that are dead because they're not getting nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, you're shedding cells every day, right? And if you have read Healthful Living, there's a part that is entitled Bathing.
Mm-hmm.
And she writes that we should not wear the same clothes every day.
Yeah.
Because have you ever woke up in the morning and you see little white stuff on your sheets? Little white flakes? That's dead cells. Everybody has them. So This is why it's important to wash our sheets at least once a week. Ministry of Healing, page 73. We're wrapping up so we can do our practical. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. In case of sickness, the cause should be
Ascertained.
Now, what does it mean by ascertaining the cause? Now, when you go to the doctor with that kind of a circulation, what are they going to do?
Treat the symptom. Give you something.
What are they going to give you?
A drug.
Probably some Lasix, some water pill. Are they ascertaining the cause?
No.
No. They're just giving you a pill to fix the symptoms periodically, but not dealing with the problem. You know, ascertaining the cause have to do with kind of like someone who's a plumber who has a water leak around their sink. And the plumber says, you know what, I'm going to fix this water leak. I'm going to mount it. Or he caulks around it, or electrical duct tape. Sorry. Is that ascertaining the cause? No, you got to get down to the pipe and find out the source of the leak and fix it. That's what ascertaining the cause is. The medical world likes to put band-aids on issues, not really fixing it. We have to go to disease, the definition of disease, in order to understand how to ascertain the cause. It says, unhealthful conditions should be changed. That's number one. So when you go to that doctor, you say, I have high blood pressure. What does he say? Here's a pill. Take it, thou shalt not surely die. That's what the enemy said at the garden. But instead of saying, how much exercising are you doing? How much rest are you getting that's elevating your stress level to cause you to have blood pressure? How much water are you drinking? Because by the way, water opens up the arteries to allow the blood to flow freely. You know? How is your relationship with God? So all of these things has to do with ascertaining the cause. This is why, as a medical missionary, when someone comes to you, the first thing you're going to do is, if they say, I have such and such problem, you shouldn't just say, well, take this and take that. You should sit down with the person and say, all right, let's do an assessment. And you're going to use the 8 laws of health to assess that person. You're going to say, how much water do you drink? How much sunlight do you get? How much exercise do you get? Tell me about your diet in the past 3 days. What did you have for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner? You're going to assess within the boundaries of the 8 laws of health. And I guarantee you, every time you're going to find there's at least 2 or 3, if not all, that is being violated.
In modern medicine, it's all about money.
It is.
And they cannot make money on the exhausted health
They can't.
or walking, healthful living.
Right. They cannot. That's right. So it says, the then nature, look at this, is to be assisted in their effort to expel the impurities, that's cancer or whatever it is, and to reestablish right conditions. The issue with this is it takes too long.
Yep.
So people just want the pill to periodically fix the problem.
Not
It
only,
doesn't matter what it is, we can ascertain it.
not only does it take too long, but this is really a spiritual battle because it involves temperance. So to say no, not to eat this, that takes a lot.
It does.
That takes a lot to say I'm not going to eat this.
It does.
When I was doing education back in the city, I would educate the patients on how to eat properly. We were trying to reduce, so the hospital were paying us to try to reduce readmission rates. So we had to do everything to keep these people healthy. The world's way is, oh, take your medication, but that's not the only way to do it. They were going to come back. The medication at this point is not working anymore because they're at a point that they're spiraling down. So then, I would try to bring in the 8 laws of health, and I would tell them, okay, are you drinking this? Are you doing this? So this one young girl, she comes in, blood sugar 500, 600, you can't bring it down, a lot of insulin. I'm letting her know, like, the consequences of this, eyesight and kidney damage and wound lack of wound healing and they can amputate even a limb.
Right.
She says that she doesn't care. She told me. She says, I don't care. I want to eat what I want to eat. And I looked at her in the face and I said, you're telling me that the ice cream you're eating right now is worth more than your arm and your limb? And she's like crying. So I don't know what to do. And, I was working with her for 30 days and every time I would call her, she was doing better. Her sugar was better, and it was a really nice, actually, that was really one of my nicest stories I've had with working with patients. And yeah, she said she doesn't care. She'd rather die than.
I think you hear this a lot, I'm gonna die anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and people smoking, I'm gonna die anyway. I know nurses and doctors who smoke. They know what the issue, and it just shows that mere scientific information is not enough to change anything. It's only take God's spirit to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So to wrap up, the limbs and feet have large arteries to receive a large amount of blood that warmth, nutrition, elasticity, and strength may be imparted to them. But when the blood is chilled from these extremities, their blood vessels contract, which makes the circulation of the necessary amount of blood and then still more and more difficult. Mm-hmm. So what happens is when the blood is chilled, right? Mm-hmm. What happens to the artery?
Smaller.
It closes up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means by contract. It makes the circulation, right? It makes the circulation of the necessary amount of blood in them more difficult. And what does she say the circulation has to do? It has to flow quickly and easily. Mm-hmm. Quickly and easily. And we know that perfect health equals perfect circulation. All right, so depends on perfect circulation. For our practical today, it's now 11:52. How do we measure blood pressure? We're going to learn how to take a BP on each other. We're going to write down the blood pressure. Glad we have someone else who can help. We're going to follow the circulation of the human body through the chart given. Again, check for radial pulse and a brachial pulse on each other and count the pulse for 1 minute. Which I forgot to mention. What is the normal, since Vicky can't speak, pulse rate? What is the normal pulse rate?
18 beats per minute.
Anyone else?
No, sorry. One is
One
respiration.
medical missionaries.
One is respiration and one is pulse.
Respiration. What's the normal respiration?
Respiration, I think, is 18.
8
12.
to 20.
8 to 20.
About 8 to 20. If you're getting higher than 20, what could be happening? There might be a respiratory infection.
Okay.
What is the normal pulse rate? Which is what? The normal pulse rate is 60 to 100.
60 to 100.
So if you fall between 60 and 100, you have a normal pulse. If you fall below that, you have a low pulse rate, which is called bradycardia. Do you remember it in school? I couldn't remember what the difference between brady and hyper. Right? Hyper means what? Fast. Hyper. Brady means slow. So bradycardia means you have a slow heart rate. Right? Hypercardia means you have a hyper or fast heart rate. So tachycardia, sorry, you have a fast heart rate. So if your heart rate is 102, 103, 104, you have your heart rate's too fast. And what's happening when your heart rate's too fast?
Different things. Could be your running.
And also the blood is not circulating properly. If it's too slow, same thing. On the opposite side. Which is why some people will go to the doctor and get what's called a pacemaker. Which deals with the electricity of the heart.
What about, they'll say, people who are very, very active can have a pulse rate 50s.
Yes.
And so that means,
Oh, yeah.
that would mean that their heart isn't.
No. If they are an athlete, you might see that. Yeah. Because their heart is used to working. But if they're in the 30s and 40s, that's not good. Because the circulation is not going through the body. So How would you advise someone to lower their blood pressure? We're going to also talk about that. I think that should be a homework for next week. Your homework for next week, actually, we're not going to have class next week. We're going to meet again in what? When are we going to meet? In 2 weeks? We can't meet next week because it's too much. We're going to take a break. We can meet again by God's grace on the 10th. November 10th. So you've got a whole week. November 10th is our next class. Your next assignment will be to read Helpful Living chapter 28, which deals with the skin. Our next lesson, we're going to be studying about the skin. So we've looked at the blood. Now we're going to go to the integumentary system, which is the skin. You're going to be shocked to learn what your skin does. Okay. We're going to watch a quick video on how to do blood pressure.
So for the speaker, are we also going to put it on paper? Are we writing about it as well?
I'm sorry?
For the speaker, are we writing?
No, you're just going to read it. I'd rather you spend some, you can take notes. Did you guys also notice these valves here? These valves inside of the heart function to keep blood from backflowing. Into the heart. This is such an amazing system. They have names as well, but I'm not going to get into all of these. It's too much medical jargon. All right. Who in here know how to take blood pressure manually? There are several ways to do it. Michaela knows it. Michaela, you know how to take blood pressure? There are several ways to take blood pressure, but everyone should know how to take it manually and not with that machine that you push a button and it does it for you. A lot of times they're not accurate. There is a way to do it without you listening or stopping the radio pulse. There's another way. The point is, before you take the blood pressure, you want to estimate what? But before we get into that, I'm going ahead of myself. Blood pressure basically measures the pressure of the blood against the arteries. Okay? If you've ever, so let me just say this again. Blood pressure measures the pressure of your blood against the arteries. I'm going to try to simplify it. So within your arteries, you always have what flowing? Blood. When you measure your blood pressure, you're simply measuring how easily or how hard the blood pressure is flowing throughout inside of those arteries. That's all it is. If you get a high number, what does that mean?
It's flowing hard.
The blood is not flowing the right way. You get a decent number, that means your blood is flowing okay. Normal blood pressure, before we get to normal blood pressure, there are two numbers in blood pressure we're looking for. The top number over the bottom number. There's a top number and there's a bottom number. The top number symbolizes the systolic blood pressure. The bottom number is the diastolic blood pressure. The systolic blood pressure measures what? The pressure that is exerted when the blood is ejected into the arteries. And normally that pressure is 120 or below. Some people are in the 90s, some people are in the hundreds. There's nothing wrong with that. You just don't want to be in the 60s, 70s. Now, remember in our first day of class, we learned that how many times does the heart beat? About? You Remember that? That little, who's got the little celestial? How many times is that, sister? It's in there. It's about.
How many times a week?
Per minute.
I think it was was it per minute or was it not per minute?
How many gallons of blood?
How many gallons of blood I make a part of?
That's what you're asking.
Was that per day, right? So about 1,250 gallons of blood per day. Okay, thank you. So now let's think about this. And this has to flow easily and quickly, right? So did we also learn that does the heart take any breaks?
Yes.
Yes. When? Between each beat, which is called the diastolic pressure. When someone has high blood pressure, they come to you and the top number is high and the bottom number is high. Which one would concern you the most? The bottom number.
It's not resting.
Because it's indicating the heart is not resting properly. The bottom number being high is more problematic than the top number. And a lot of people actually don't know that. But that's a fact. The diastolic pressure is the pressure of the blood exerted within the arteries between heartbeats. Between heartbeats, which indicates a break. It needs a break. There needs to be a break. Every organ in your body needs what?
A break.
Rest. That's what the break is. God didn't create any body part to go and go and go and go. The GI system needs rest. The brain needs rest. The heart needs rest. Every organ in the body needs a rest. Needs breaks. So the normal diastolic pressure is usually 80 millimeters of mercury, which I forgot to mention. The way we measure blood pressure is by millimeters of mercury, which stands for mmHg. Millimeters of mercury. Now, mercury is just the jargon that we use to measure the blood pressure. Millimeters of mercury. Now pass this around. Everybody look at what 1 or 2 or 3 millimeters of mercury is. You have 20 millimeters of mercury, then 30, then 40, then 50, then 60, all the way to 300 millimeters of mercury. If somebody is above 200, they are in 180 and up, they are in what we call a hypertensive crisis. It is a medical emergency.
That's the system.
Yeah, we'll see that too, right here. Actually, right here. So, blood pressure and heart fast. This is from the Texas Heart Institute. The green symbolizes you're good, right? Less than 120 and less than 80. 120 to 129 and less than 80, you are elevated. All right? High blood pressure, stage 1, is when you are in the 130s to 139 or 80 to 89. Stage 2 is 140 to 180 or 90 to 120. And then 180 over 120, you are in what's called a hypertensive crisis, which is a medical emergency. You can have a stroke at any time when your blood pressure gets that high.
Does it matter what you're doing? Does it matter your activity at the time when you take the blood pressure?
Well, generally, when we take a blood pressure, we want the person to be resting.
Yeah, but sometimes you go to the doctor, as we said, they don't ask you what you did before you came.
They should be. They're not doing it properly. They need to ask you, have you had anything to drink?
Yeah.
What's going on? Blah, blah, all the questions. So, yeah.
The 180 over 20, that is it's the hardest working. The 180 is the hardest working very, very hard.
Yeah.
And the 120 it's not resting properly.
120 is problematic. Both numbers are problematic. Let me just back up. I want to make sure we understand this. We don't want either the top or the bottom to be high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But when the bottom is very, very high, that's more problematic. That's what I meant to say. Okay? So we're going to come together and we're going to, oh, by the way, here's a perfect, this is the tree of life, the moringa. It's really good to lower blood pressure. I'm going to show you a quick video. This is probably the best video I could find online on how to take the blood pressure. You guys ready to see this? Make sure you pay attention to this because you're going to be doing this to one another and we need to all know how to do it. And this is not going to be the only class where we practice this. We're going to keep practicing until we get it. See what he's measuring? The first thing you want to do, I wrote it down, is approximate the systolic pressure. Most people don't do that first. What does that mean? You need to have a starting point. You can do this two ways. You can say to the person, what is normally your blood pressure? You can estimate that way. Or you can estimate the proper way, which is you want to blow the pump without the stethoscope first. It's written right here. All right? You want to estimate the systolic pressure. How do you estimate? What you're going to blow the pump. You're going to put your hand on the radial artery. You're going to blow it up until the radial artery. You're going to blow it up until the artery is not beating anymore. That tells you that's the estimation of the systolic pressure. You're going to release. When it comes to this machine, tighty, righty is tighty, lefty is loosey. All right, you get that? When you turn, here's the blood pressure. It's going around, isn't it? Pass it around here. When you turn right, you tighten it. That's how you pump to hold the air in. And when you turn left, you loosen it. You don't want to loosen it too quickly because it's going to just, you want to loosen it about 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury at a time. All right? But let's watch the video because you'll understand. Pay attention to what the video is saying.
I'm just going to feel your pulse.
What is he doing now? He's pumping, but what is he looking for? He's estimating the systolic number. Because without that, you won't know where you are. You're going to be lost. All right? Watch this. Look at the side of the picture. So what's the systolic?
Like 140, yeah, 143.
About 140. Okay, so he's loosening it. Now what? Watch what he does. What is he doing? Where does the stethoscope go? On the radial artery, right? You see what it says? Reinflate the cuff about 20 to 30 millimeters of mercury above what you got as the approximate number. For the systolic. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You want to go 20 to 30 above what you measured it to be. All right? You guys following so far? I know it's confusing, but it's not confusing? All right. Slowly deflate what I told you about 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury per second. The sound that you hear is called the first Korotkov sound. The first Korotkov sound indicates the systolic number. All right? That's how it's going to sound like. When the noise disappears, that's the diastolic number. So you're doing this and you're looking at your numbers. Okay? We got to get a bigger one. We have those big ones that we can buy with the big numbers.
I'll buy, because I can't see.
I know, this is tiny. So the first sound is what is it called?
Systolic.
The systolic, or the first sound is called the first corrective sound. This is the man who it's after his name.
Okay.
When the sound disappears, it's called the fifth corrective sound. All right? And then you have your top and your bottom note. Hang on. Once you don't hear a sound anymore, you can loosen it altogether. So you don't want to loosen it quickly at first. You want to go about 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury per second. So you're looking at, did everybody see the numbers on this? All right.
I wondered why it was just the same numbers. Now I understand, because I mean, how do you determine? But it's,
What's that, Sister?
no, I said, now I understand, because I used to wonder, shouldn't there be something that say diastolic on one side and systolic? But now I understand.
Yes.
What you're doing
Yes.
as far as hearing,
Yes.
you know, and so it's
Yes.
right.
Here's a clue. The first sound is going to be loud. You're going to hear doo-doo. You're going to hear doo-doo. So the first time you hear it, that's your systolic. The very first sound you hear, that's your systolic. Then it's going to go doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. When you don't hear it anymore, you look at the number, that's your bottom. That's your diastolic. That's it. That's all to it. It's not that difficult. So, the stethoscope gives you the bottom and the top number, and the top and the top and the bottom number. When you become very good at it, you don't even need the stethoscope. I can do it by just looking, and I can see when it stops. But that's a whole nother. We don't want to do that. So the first number you're going to hear. Ooh. So listen to the sound now. Don't focus so much on the reading. So he approximated what the systolic is, right? First thing is, how do you approximate the systolic?
First time you hear.
No. You don't need to step before.
Yeah.
You just put your finger here. When you don't feel it anymore, you say, okay, this person is about 120. Then you go 20 to 30 above that when you're pumping the second time, now with the stethoscope in your ear over the brachial artery. You pump it, 20 to 30 above what you got, then you release it slowly, about 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury. The first time you hear doo-doo, that's your systolic. And then as it keeps going, you're going to hear doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. And then it stops, that's your diastolic, and then you release it. Yeah.
When you approximate, this is solid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you, that's what my question.
When you approximate the systolic.
So you get, say if it's 120, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you, put the stethoscope to your ear,
Mm-hmm.
and you.
Over the brachial artery.
Artery. And so you go, what was that?
20 to 30 above the 120 that you got. So you're going to pump it, okay? You're going to pump it to 130 or 140 or 150. Then you're going to release it slowly. The needle, you don't want the needle to just drop down like that because you're not going to hear anything. That's going to happen to you when you first practice. You're going to let it go slowly. It's going to go. And then about 4 seconds or 5 seconds after, it could be, depending on what the pressure is, you're going to hear the first doo-doo. That's your systolic. You're still gonna keep hearing a sound, and then the sound's going to fade and disappear. When it disappears, you note the number, that's your dash stop. All right, everybody got it? All right. I only have one cup. I was gonna ask you for another.
I guess I could have borrowed one.
But I think we need to do it together because it could be difficult. So, let us practice. Taking blood pressure as our practical. We're not going to get it all today, but, we'll do our best.
Are you collecting that homework or not?
I am.
Okay.
I was going to have you guys go over them with each other, but not everybody did them. So, can we just save them for next time? So we're backed up now already, and you guys have another homework on top of it. So that those who didn't do it. Healthful Living, chapter 27 is the homework. Read it, please, and write a report on it. Now you have another homework. Healthful Living, chapter 28, the skin. Our next class, we're going to start looking at the skin and its job and purpose. All right. You guys can come together and try and practice this, and Sister Vicky can help.